Revealing moments in Washington that we've seen in some time, and it confirms our worst fears about the Biden team. But first, Beijing's silent screams. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Now, right now, it's safe to conclude that most elites in the United States believe Joe Rogan is a bigger threat to their way of life than the Chinese dictator Xi Jinping. They go to great lengths, after all, to avoid the uncomfortable facts about China's torture and subjugation of the Uyghurs and, of course, all the political dissidents. They'll say something like, well, it's a complex situation in China. It's a different history, a different culture. And if, we weren't making money there, someone else would. But on Joe Rogan, they never pull their punches, and how dangerous he is and how dangerous his podcast is. Some aging musicians will stomp their gnarly feet, pushing to get him banned from Spotify. Others will demand red flag warnings required wherever he's heard. And of course, the radicals in the West Wing, they nod right along.
Disclaimer, it's a positive step, but we want every platform to continue doing more to call out mis and disinformation while also uplifting accurate information.
So claims a woman who exhales misinformation and props up narratives for a living that are false, of course. Now, as the left continues to press for censorship of independent voices across media outlets, they're fine with the Chinese Communist Party having full access to hawk its propaganda across America. All day long, the CCP tweets through state-run media and dummy accounts. They write opinion pieces in some of our biggest newspapers. They fund Chinese studies programs across academia. And starting tomorrow night, NBC is going to bless this despotic regime with 2 weeks of nonstop propaganda. But did the queen of disinformation, Ms. Psaki, call out the coming mis and disinformation?
Does Biden plan to watch the Olympics, U.S. athletes competing?
Yes, absolutely. We all do. I'm not going to rule out an Olympics outfit here. I would encourage all of you to do the same. Yes, we are looking forward to it.
She's giddy, beaming. But for all her sucking up, Psaki got a kick in the teeth from the Chinese state-run media, with one outlet saying, considering that Biden claimed a so-called diplomatic boycott of Beijing 2022, he seems to have a bad memory again. Now, obviously, the diplomatic boycott meant no officials would be traveling to Beijing, but you get the point. China sees the Biden White House as weak and stupid. Yet the global stage is filled with useful idiots eager to stay in China's good graces, either for money, for power, or for both. People such as Thomas Bach, the president of the IOC, have made their deal with the devil.
We are very grateful for all the efforts having been undertaken by the organizing committee, by the Chinese people. I must say I'm really touched to see when you look around and when you speak with the people. This is really the Olympic spirit and the welcome culture here.
This isn't just embarrassing, it's repugnant. Mr. Bach said those words knowing full well that President Xi can make any critic of the CCP or his leadership disappear at any time. He can threaten them, their families, take their jobs, their homes. Even its world-famous athletes can be crushed by the regime. Like China's top female tennis player, Peng Shuai, who back in November made sexual assault allegations against a top party official. Within 30 minutes, the CCP silenced her. She emerged weeks later and recanted her earlier allegations. It was all kind of the equivalent of a hostage tape. Yet our government greenlit sending our athletes there like nothing happened. And the IOC is helping, of course, smooth out any bad PR for the monster Xi.
We will have the meeting. I'm very happy and also grateful to Peng Shuai.
What do you plan to do about the sexual assault allegation, and do you plan to ask or seek an investigation?
It must be her decision. It's her life. It's her allegations.
What a repellent shill this man is for the CCP. It was fewer than 2 years ago that the people of Hong Kong were marching in the streets, waving American flags, by the way, urging the world to pay attention to what China was doing there to crush dissent and freedom. The video of Chinese security thugs throwing protesters in vans, dragging them away, it was heartbreaking. But even after President Xi crushed the people of Hong Kong, after 2 secretaries of state said China is committing genocide against the Uyghur people, and after Xi began the massive military buildup in the South China Sea, NBC still decided to stick with the plan to celebrate this brutal regime by paying to broadcast the Winter Games. And just like that, the most oppressive, most powerful communist dictatorship in the world gets a 2-week promotional push from the network.
So this morning, the wait's over. We've been talking about it for a long time. The Winter Olympics are here, if you can believe it. Some competitions already underway ahead of tomorrow's opening ceremony.
If only the reality of the situation, though, reflected NBC's giddiness.
Our journey from the United States started with an approval process that took weeks. Be fully vaccinated, show 2 negative PCR tests, acquire a green health QR code, and so on.
Life has just been so strict lately. Definitely makes things like going to the Olympics not as enjoyable.
The COVID test upon arrival, it's been called the brain scraper. And let's just say it's thorough. No tickets being sold to fans here. Athletes are being asked to mask up and not even cheer for their teammates out loud. It's unsettling. If there's any doubt about how strict Chinese authorities are in regard to preventing the spread of the virus, these heavily branded chain-link walls say it all.
Looks like a blast, doesn't it? Well, the fact is, every chance they get, our elites always look for ways to cover for and even celebrate China. And by the same token, attack the United States. It happens at the UN, it happens at Davos, of course at the WHO. And top figures in American politics, business, and education repeatedly accuse us of systemic racism and, of course, the America Firsters as just a bunch of fascists. They follow in the footsteps, though, of Chairman Mao by tearing down our history and openly questioning whether democracy will even survive. Just like President Xi himself, they define democracy as a system where only they are in charge. No wonder they don't have a problem with our participating in these genocide games. Democrats and woke corporations love accusing Republicans of being on the wrong side of history. How many times have you heard that? Usually they're trying to rewrite the Constitution or advance some kind of radical agenda. Yet as the genocide games in China kick off, they are the ones who are on the wrong side of history. They have no problem summoning self-righteous indignation, words of moral condemnation against Joe Rogan or Fox or anti-mandate doctors or Donald Trump, do they? But China? Not so much. The angle will never ignore the silent screams of the voiceless. We cannot pretend not to see what's happening in China. And to that end, we again urge you to join our Not 1 Minute campaign during the next 2 weeks. We can celebrate the Olympians when they get home, but don't give NBC or President Xi a minute of your time. And that's the angle.